Picture a vast land of endless grasslands, a sea of green where the horizon kisses the sky, and the wind never ceases its restless howl. This is the steppe, a harsh, unforgiving world that forged the most feared warriors history has ever known, the Mongols. In the early 13th century, a single figure emerged from these wild plains to unite the scattered warring tribes. His name was Temujin, but history immortalizes him as Genghis Khan, a man born in blood and betrayal, who would go on to conquer the world. In just a few decades under Genghis Khan and his successors, the Mongols carved out the largest contiguous empire humanity has ever seen. Stretching from the cold shores of Korea to the gates of Europe, from the frozen forests of Siberia to the burning deserts of Arabia. Led by brilliant minds like Subutai, a general said to have never lost a battle, the Mongols didn't just defeat their enemies, they annihilated them. Entire kingdoms ceased to exist overnight. Their tactics, their speed, their adaptability, all rewrote the very rules of warfare. But then came a mystery. In 1241, with the Mongols poised on the doorstep of Europe, having already laid waste to Russia, Poland, and Hungary, they stopped. Their thunderous advance halted as suddenly as it began. Why? The death of the great Khan Ogedai called them home, sparing Europe by the thinnest thread of fate. But imagine for a moment. What if they hadn't stopped? What if Batu Khan and Subutai had pressed onward? Would Paris have become a Mongol outpost? Would the Vatican have burned to the ground? Would the castles of England have crumbled under the hooves of Mongol horsemen? This is not just a question of history. It's a question of identity, of civilization itself. Let's rewrite the past and imagine a world where the Mongol Empire ruled not just Asia, but all of Europe. This is the story of what might have been.
Soldiers! Europe is weak. Let us press forward. The continent is ours for the taking. Let us eliminate every living thing on the planet! Long live Great Khan!
But news from Karakoram. The Great Khan is dead. We must return.
1241 AD. Europe stood on the brink of annihilation. The Mongol horde, commanded by the relentless Batu Khan, had swept through the steppes of Russia, crushed Poland at the Battle of Legnica, and obliterated Hungary at Mohi. Their armies, composed of fearsome horse archers, engineers, and siege masters, moved with a speed and precision that Europe had never seen. Cities burned to ash, entire populations were wiped from the map, and tales of the Tartars, as Europeans called them, became synonymous with terror. No fortress seemed impregnable. No army, no matter how valiant, could withstand their onslaught. Kings and emperors whispered of the end times. And then, just as suddenly as they came, the Mongols stopped. Europe was granted an unexpected reprieve. Why? The answer lay thousands of miles away. Ogedai Khan, son of Genghis Khan and the supreme ruler of the Mongol Empire, had died in distant Karakoram. By Mongol law, all high-ranking leaders were required to return to the homeland to elect a new Great Khan. Duty, tradition, and succession halted the greatest invasion Europe had ever known. But what if they hadn't stopped? What if the Mongol generals, Batu Khan, Subutai the tactician, and their legions had continued westward instead? Would Paris have fallen? Would the Vatican have burned? Would the castles of England have crumbled beneath hooves and fire? Imagine it, an unbroken storm sweeping across the continent, forging a new world beneath the banner of the eternal blue sky. This is the story of the world that could have been.
Europe is a continent of walls and pride, but walls crumble and pride dies on the battlefield. You have to surrender or die. Long live King Khan!
We thought our armor would save us. We were wrong.
Imagine the Mongols never stopped. The horde moves west, steamrolling over what remains of fragmented European kingdoms. In 1241, after crushing Hungary and Poland, they press into Austria, then Germany, scattering the disunited Holy Roman Empire. Cities like Vienna, Prague, and Munich fall within months. Their stone walls no match for Mongol siege engineering, perfected in China and the Middle East. Soon the rivers Rhine and Danube become bloodlines of conquest, with Paris and the heart of France falling in less than a year. French knights, proud and steeped in chivalric tradition, find their heavy armor useless against the speed and precision of Mongol horse archers. Their tales of valor are reduced to dust in the steppe winds. England, isolated by water, watches in horror. But the Mongols, who once crossed the frozen rivers of Russia, are not deterred by the sea. By winter, Mongol engineers construct massive fleets on the coasts of France and the Netherlands, a technology learned from the Koreans and Chinese, and in the following spring, England is invaded, a century before the historical Mongol fleet even attempted Japan. Soon, the entire European continent is subdued under the banner of the Great Khan. Europe is no longer a patchwork of feudal lords, but a province of the largest empire the world has ever known. With Europe entirely subdued, the Mongol Empire doesn't just leave ashes behind. They build an empire of systems. A Pax Mongolica is imposed, the peace of the Khan, stretching from the Pacific to the Atlantic. The Mongols, known for their brutality in conquest, were just as remarkable in administration. They establish a governance structure blending European nobility with Mongol overseers. Local kings and dukes are reduced to mere vassals, paying tribute to the Khan's emissaries. A network of relay stations, modeled after the Mongolian yam system, spans the continent, enabling messengers to traverse from Lisbon to Karakorum in weeks instead of months. Cities like Paris, Prague, and Vienna become melting pots of culture. Chinese, Persian, Arab, and Mongol officials oversee trade, architecture, and taxation. Imagine Gothic cathedrals standing beside pagoda-style Mongol administrative buildings, with Silk Road merchants selling spices in what was once a European plaza. The Mongols also bring with them paper money, advanced metallurgy, astronomy from Persia, and bureaucratic precision from China. They tolerate diverse religions. Catholic churches stand alongside Buddhist temples and mosques. Yet any sign of rebellion is met with swift, ruthless reprisal. Europeans, for the first time, are fully integrated into the Asian sphere of influence. Their scientific progress shaped by Eastern philosophies, their trade dictated by Mongol priorities. Under Mongol dominion, Europe doesn't just adapt, it transforms. What emerges is not merely a continent under foreign rule, but the dawn of an alternate renaissance, born not in Florence, but in a cross-cultural nexus spanning from Karakorum to Krakow. Persian poets recite verses in the courts of Paris. Chinese paper makers establish workshops in Venice, making paper affordable and accelerating the spread of written knowledge. Arabic numerals, astronomical charts, and medical texts flood European libraries, fundamentally altering science centuries ahead of schedule. Imagine architects blending Gothic spires with Chinese tiered roofs, structures that look like cathedrals married to pagodas. Fashion changes too. European nobles sport silken tunics embroidered with steppe motifs, while Mongol Khans in Europe wear tailored cloaks of Flemish wool. A pan-Eurasian language blend emerges, a lexicon of Latin, Mongolian, Persian, and Chinese, spoken in trade hubs like Constantinople, now fully revived under the Pax Mongolica. The visual arts shift. Religious paintings now depict Christian saints beside depictions of Tengri, the sky god of the Mongols. The printing press? Surprised. It emerges centuries earlier, inspired by Chinese block printing, and literacy rates skyrocket. Yet, beneath this flourishing exchange, there's tension. Cultures blend, but identities blur. And for many Europeans, the question remains: are we still European, or something else entirely? But not all of Europe submits quietly beneath the banner of the Great Khan. In the forests of Germany, in the highlands of Scotland, in the icy fjords of Scandinavia, a spark of defiance burns. Bands of rebels, knights stripped of their fiefdoms, disgraced nobles, free peasants, and zealous clergy, form shadow armies. In the shadows of Mongol-controlled cities, secret symbols are painted on walls. Coded messages pass in churches, monasteries, and taverns. Even music becomes a tool of rebellion. Old songs, once innocent, now carry hidden calls to arms. These rebels know they cannot defeat the Mongol juggernaut head-on. Instead, they adapt. In the Alps, guerrilla fighters ambush Mongol supply lines, rolling boulders down narrow passes. In the marshlands of Poland, light cavalry harass the occupiers, striking by night. In the British Isles, Celtic clans use the mists and bogs to stage hit-and-run attacks. Some even ally with distant powers, Byzantine remnants, African merchants, or secret Islamic networks, to gain weapons, horses, and crucial intelligence. The rebellion isn't just about freedom, it's about identity. What does it mean to be European under Mongol dominion? Each skirmish, each assassination, each whispered prayer in a hidden chapel asks, can a continent lose its soul and still fight to reclaim it? Imagine a Europe rewired under the Mongol banner. Cities like Paris, Florence, and Krakow transformed into outposts of a vast, interconnected empire. The Mongol knack for fostering trade would have expanded the Silk Road right into the heart of Europe. Caravans, laden with silks, spices, and scientific texts from China and the Islamic world, would pour into medieval marketplaces. European scholars, sitting beside Mongol administrators, would translate not just Latin texts, but also Chinese astronomy, Persian medicine, and Indian mathematics. Gunpowder, already a Mongol military asset, might have been mass-produced centuries earlier in Europe, revolutionizing warfare and fortifications ahead of time. The printing press, which Europe historically invents in the 15th century, might emerge earlier through Chinese woodblock influence, sparking a premature spread of knowledge. Imagine a Renaissance, not in the 1400s, but in the 1200s. A Eurasian Renaissance blending Western philosophy with Eastern science. Technological marvels like advanced metallurgy, the compass, and early mechanical devices could spread far sooner, changing maritime exploration paths and accelerating the age of discovery. The Mongol emphasis on communication via their Yam postal system might lead to a more unified Europe, with roads and messengers connecting east to west faster than ever. But what would such progress cost? Mongol rule was efficient, yet ruthless. Religious freedom might exist, but political dissent would be crushed. Would innovation thrive under the shadow of an empire built on obedience and fear? No empire lasts forever, not even the Mongols. Overextension, internal rivalries, plagues, and the sheer vastness of the territory would eventually strain the Mongol hold on Europe. But when the banners fall, what remains? If the Mongol Empire had conquered all of Europe, the continent's eventual liberation or fragmentation would not erase the deep imprints left behind. Administrative reforms introduced by the Mongols, census-taking, taxation systems, and meritocratic appointments could have permanently reshaped European governance. Languages would bear Mongol, Turkic, and Persian influences. Cities rebuilt under Mongol design might still feature pagoda-like spires beside Gothic cathedrals. The fusion of religions, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, and Tengrism could spark new syncretic faiths, philosophies blending East and West. Technologically, the accelerated adoption of gunpowder, advanced cartography, and postal networks might push Europe centuries ahead. The age of exploration might begin with joint Mongol-European fleets, reaching the Americas long before Columbus. Culturally, the shared heritage of a Eurasian superstate might prevent the sharp divides between East and West that define modern geopolitics. Instead of Cold Wars, perhaps a Eurasian Union, forged in conquest, tempered by trade, would shape global history. But would this blended world be one of harmony or hidden resentments? The shadow of conquest never fully fades, yet the legacy of connection, innovation, and cultural blending might endure far longer than the scars of war. So, what if the Mongol Empire had conquered all of Europe? History would have been rewritten, not with the familiar borders of modern nations, but with a continent shaped by steppe warriors, Persian scholars, and European craftsmen, all under one imperial banner. Would we have seen an age of accelerated progress, with ideas, technologies, and cultures merging centuries earlier? Or would the brutality of conquest have left a legacy of oppression too deep to heal? Perhaps the greatest lesson of the Mongol Empire is this: even the most powerful empires cannot escape time, but the connections they forge, roads, ideas, and stories, can endure longer than the walls they build. And as we stand today, divided by nations, yet connected by global trade, technology, and culture, are we not in some way living in a world the Mongols once imagined? A world united, not by conquest, but by connection,